Most people do not fail because they lack talent. They fail because they have no system. And without a system, even the most gifted person will eventually collapse under the weight of their own potential. Think about that for a moment. You may know someone, maybe you are that someone, who is clearly intelligent, clearly capable, clearly full of ideas. But the results never seem to match the ability. The goals get set and then quietly abandoned. The weeks blur into months. The months blur into years. And at some point, a painful question surfaces. Why am I not further along? The answer is rarely about effort. Most people are working hard. They are busy from morning until night. The problem is not the absence of energy. It is the absence of architecture. There is no structure underneath the effort. No operating system running the life. Your phone, no matter how powerful, is useless without an operating system beneath it. The hardware may be exceptional. The components may be world-class. But without the system telling each part what to do, when to do it, and how to communicate with everything else, it is just an expensive piece of metal. The same is true for a human life. Raw talent without a personal operating system is just untapped potential sitting in the dark. There was a young architect who graduated near the top of his class. He was gifted with vision. He could see a building before the first stone was laid. He had charm, he had drive, and he had a hunger that his peers could see from across the room. In his first years out of school, he took every project he could find. He worked long hours, said yes to everything, chased every opportunity. But something strange began to happen. The more he worked, the less he produced. His desk became a battlefield of unfinished plans. His inbox was a river with no bank. Clients called about deadlines he had forgotten. Projects he started with fire began dying in the middle stages. He was exhausted, overwhelmed, and quietly ashamed, because on paper, he had everything he needed to succeed. One evening, an older architect, a man who had built a quiet but extraordinary career over 4 decades, visited his studio. He looked around at the chaos without judgment. He looked at the young man's tired eyes. And then he said something that shifted everything. He said, "You are running 10 programs on a computer with no operating system. Of course it is crashing." He told the young man to go home that night and do one thing. Write down his top 3 priorities. Not his tasks, not his projects. His priorities. The non-negotiables. The things that, if he protected them above everything else, would move his entire life forward. Then he told him to build his days around those 3 things. Every decision, every commitment, every yes and every no, filtered through that list. The young man did it. And slowly, the chaos began to organize itself. Not because the work became easier, not because he had more hours in the day, but because he had a system, a personal operating system, that gave every hour a purpose and every decision a clear filter. Within 2 years, his best work was being published. Within 5, he was leading his own firm. Here is the deeper truth beneath that story. A personal operating system is not a productivity hack. It is not a morning routine you copied from a podcast or a journal you bought and filled for 3 days. It is something far more intentional. It is the architecture of your own life, built by you, for you, grounded in what you actually value and where you are genuinely trying to go. Most people live reactively. They wake up and respond to the world, to messages, to demands, to the urgency of other people's priorities. Their days are shaped by everything except their own intentions. A personal operating system flips that completely. It makes you the designer of your life instead of the passenger. And here is what it actually looks like in practice. It starts with clarity, knowing your top priorities, and protecting them as if your life depends on it. Because in many ways, it does. Then it requires structure, building a daily and weekly rhythm that ensures those priorities get time, not just intention. It demands boundaries, learning to say no to things that feel urgent but serve nothing you are building. And it needs a review process, a moment each week where you step back, look honestly at how you spent your time, and recalibrate. These are not complicated ideas, but simplicity is not the same as easy. Building and living inside a personal operating system requires discipline every single day. It requires the humility to admit that without structure, your best intentions will drift. And it requires the courage to design your life deliberately instead of inheriting whatever shape the world gives it. Start this week, not with a complicated system. Start with 3 questions. What are the 3 things I must protect in my life right now? What daily rhythm, if I followed it consistently, would move those things forward? And what am I currently doing that I need to stop because it is consuming time and producing nothing of value? Answer those honestly. Build from there. Refine it over time. But begin now, because here is what separates the people who achieve from the people who almost achieve. It is not brilliance. It is not luck. It is not connections. It is the quiet, unglamorous daily work of someone who knows exactly what they are building, has a system to build it, and refuses to let the chaos of life pull them off course. You have the hardware. You have the capacity. You have the drive. Now build the operating system and watch what becomes possible.